What's up, everybody? We're back this week. This is July 9th episode and review for Impact on AXS TV. And as you can see, I said we back because I'm not by myself as she has returned, Miss Miranda Morales.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hello. I'm doing well. How about you, Nadir?
Not too bad. I just gotta say, like, we were talking right before we got started. This episode, a lot of action last episode. This episode just had a lot of untwining all the inner pieces that was going on and a lot set for the future. So just really digesting it a little bit. So I need a little bit of water to help wash it all down. But it was a lot that happened tonight for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say, I totally agree. This was a lot more storytelling. There was some good action in the ring, but a lot of what this episode was about was expanding, telling stories, planting seeds for what's to come for Slammiversary, it seems like.
That's right. And Slammiversary, July 18th. I'm absolutely looking forward to that. And the good thing is, like, doing podcast media and stuff like that, such as yourself and other friends. Like, the good thing about that is, at least in my company of people, we just don't see one thing and we just automatically like, oh, this sucks, and just, throw a tirade. And much like I said last week at the end of the review, there was things I questioned about how the tournament went, the tournament in its entirety, but coming back this week completely resolved every bit of reserve I had for it. So just to kind of go right back to that really quick. So the number one contender championship for the world, the Impact World Championship, it was borrowed time. They needed something to do to get them to their next pay-per-view, to the next point. Rebellion obviously never went down, which we were going to go to in New York. So they said, hey, what are we going to do? And the tournament was a good way to give people some time dealing with the COVID-19, with people not being able to enter the States, people social distancing and isolation. The tournament was a great way to really get a program for these open weeks of not, having their full roster and so on. So this week, as you can see, the roster is back. Everyone's here. So everybody from Canada is back and wherever else everybody was at, but everyone was here. Rob Van Dam, the North, everybody was back. Yeah, Taya, Jordan, everyone's back. So they're at full capacity, well, almost. But nonetheless, as you can see, they were just waiting till they were able to get the right guidance to proceed in the future. And the tournament, as much as I had my reserves with it, it makes sense to me now as to why they did it and why they needed to go the way that it did to really get to this point now. Because, today we had a lot of questions. They threw out a lot of little teasers about things that were going to happen and questions that was going to be answered. And I think the first thing we definitely should talk about is the future of the Impact World Championship. And Scott D'Amore, after I think getting it totally wrong last week with the whole Trey and Ace Austin, you want to be the number one contender thing, I was like, that's wonky. But I think Scott
with Wentz just jumping in.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah,
but I think Scott got it right tonight. Yeah, right.
Yes. No, he made up for last week, and you're absolutely right with the way that number one contenders tournament ended. It kind of felt like the whole tournament itself was deflated. But I know you'll go into it right now, what that whole segment was about, and everyone that was brought in, and the story it told, and what it's now setting up for Slammiversary, it makes much more sense now.
Yep. So obviously Tessa's still not in the building.
Yes.
But with that being said, everybody at whatever point within the number one contenders, whoever even to this point, whoever was ever considered a number one contender, whether it had been Michael Elgin, who's just been a shark in the water every time he smelled blood, whether it be Ace Austin winning the tournament, whether it be Trey, who, was not able to get his chance against Ace Austin, and then the returning Eddie Edwards, who originally was part of the three-way. They made it a five-way and said, look, let's not even try to make this any bit more difficult than it has to be. Put them all in a match and let them work. And I think that's fine, especially with considering if you have 5 people who rightfully had their claim for the title, especially with how packed Slammiversary could be, put them all in one match and just get it over with. Like, just get it done. You know, I'm not mad at that at all. I'm really not mad at that because my one thing I would have hated is like, okay, well, we don't have anything for Trey, so let's just get Trey versus, I don't know, anybody, Hernandez, and say, hey, let's just make that happen, or you know, So I'm cool with this because it all makes sense. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, same here. I'm definitely okay with this. You're right. Every one of these competitors has a stake to claim, and that's actually kind of hard to do in a championship match. Where Michael Elgin's been fighting for months. Ever since we saw this, I mean, Hard to Kill, a lot of the seeds were planted. Same thing with Eddie Edwards. Ace Austin winning the tournament, and Trey being knocked out mysteriously, and him not even getting the opportunity to compete. It also makes sense of we're not going to see another Trey Austin match again. We're not going to just see Michael Elgin and Eddie Edwards. We're going to see all of them, and plus Tahsa, who we haven't seen in 2 months. So I feel like this is going to be a great opportunity for everyone who has a claim to get their shots, but also to see some matchups that we haven't seen in a while. And it will also be a good way. I mean, Tahsa hasn't been around for 2 months, so this will be a great way, I think, for her to be able to jump back in. I'm also thinking this may be a solid way for them to take the belt off Tahsa if that's a decision that they make without her getting pinned. I don't think the company has put so much time and attention to her just to lose. I wouldn't say in this way, because I feel like this way still will make her look strong if she doesn't get pinned, but it would lead to another chase. And what we saw with Tahsa was the money's in the chase. So if she has another chase for the championship again, it would look very different than what she had with Sami Callihan, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yep, I do. Well noted. And like you said, as much as everything that was happening in the world and with the pandemic and kind of really having to put a lot of this on hold, Eddie Edwards came out and said that he didn't feel comfortable with being there. So you got to respect that. Tahsa, obviously, if it's not because her inability or her unwilling to want to be there, but also because of where her residence is, it just makes sense. So it's just ultimately still borrowed time, because again, while Canadian residents are back, we don't know what's the state of people re-entering from Mexico. So that could be part of this too. So, it just gives her the proper borrowed time moving forward. And, a lot of people were saying online that maybe she was done with the company for whatever reason. I don't know where that came from. Nonetheless, I think this still just makes sense regardless, to just allow her to not whenever she's allowed to be able to re-enter the States, but also shake off some ring rust and whatever. No, it just gives it proper times and keeps her strong. And while the other 4 people can really build this going into Slammiversary, because that's going to be a stacked card that night, with a lot of hinted seeds of people who may return. But I think solidifying their top championship in this manner just makes sense to me, and I'll be looking forward to that for sure. But by the way, we mentioned Trey and getting taken out last week. Unless I was asleep, we didn't get no resolution as to who attacked Trey, right?
No, they didn't. I mean, the seeds were planted, like I mentioned. Well, actually, they were planning last week. Madison Rayne kept kind of suggesting that maybe that was an inside job. And then Trey did come back this week. He was out with the Rascals, and he had some questions that apparently seemed like the tag team were avoiding to answer. And then we saw the North come for the first time in a while, and they also instigated some more seed planting within the Rascals to pretty much say, they think Wentz did it. They think Wentz attacked Trey so he could get the opportunity to be in this finals match. And, I like the line, as the North said, well, can only be one of you who become world champion for the first time. Everyone thinks it's Trey. Maybe the other two got jealous or specifically went. So I thought it was a little silly last week when Madison kept playing it up, but it seems like this week they were really pushing that, and that could be something that actually comes out.
The other really big thing I think everyone was looking forward to tonight, outside of the news of what's going to happen with the state of the Impact World Championship, is the debut of Deonna Purrazzo, which we will talk about in a little bit, because I definitely have initial thoughts of it. But just to kind of go over a couple of other little things that happened for the night, I really wasn't going to talk about this, but I just couldn't help but to laugh. But the Impact flashback moment of the night, Mike and Miranda with Earl Hebner. Oh my God, how did I forget about that? That was absolutely hilarious.
He's legendary, really a legendary referee. Mike Kanellis wanting to beat a Hall of Famer. There was no Hall of Famers there except Earl Hebner, so he instigated a fight. Earl Hebner kicking out at 2 after an initial punch by Mike Kanellis, and ripping his shirt, just hulking out in front of Maria. Unfortunately, he got a big old, I think it was a kick to the face, and was pinned. But I forgot how funny Earl Hebner can actually be too. Yes. I completely forgot. And you know what? I do think that Impact was such a good place for Mike and Maria. I really enjoyed there are multiple storylines there. I don't know what their situation is as far as if they are exploring different options now with different companies. But as you talked about earlier, there's a lot of seeds being planted even with these flashbacks leading up to Slammiversary. I don't have a doubt that every week these flashbacks are going to feature someone that was released from WWE, and they're planting seeds to who's going to show up. And I would actually really like for Mike and Maria to come back. I think Impact was a great place for them. I think that they are, character-wise, really entertaining. They had a lot of fun storylines, and I think they could continue that in a way that they just didn't get the chance to in WWE.
Well said. You know what? I was going to ask you, what did you want to pivot to next? But since you brought up Slammiversary, also really quick before I forget, seeing Tenille Dashwood in the beginning opening video with Taya, totally forgot that Tenille was on the roster again. I just keep forgetting that she's there. Yeah,
I know
the Knockouts roster.
Yeah, I mean, and if we see her again, I mean, we talked about this last week. The knockout roster is, really, really stacked. I'd love to see her come back. Maybe whether it's travel restrictions or maybe, what she was doing that was short term, I'm not sure. But I hope to see her back there, because I think that she'd be just a really good continued fit there.
Yeah. But yeah, July 19th, Slammiversary. So look, yes, the promo video that was aired 3 times tonight, because I counted, with the hints and seeds of people who were released by another company who potentially may show up for Slammiversary. We've seen those. I mean, obviously, we've seen the pictures. We've seen the Bulgarian flag hinting at Rusev and all the people, ex-TNA wrestlers coming back. Rhino also making a nod towards Heath Slater, saying he already has a tag team partner and he has kids.
Ooh.
Is there any way possible for Impact to pull this off? This will be a grand heist if they are even able to get all these people to the show, even if it is for one show. Is this virtually possible at this rate?
I mean, I guess it could be possible. And I think the key is one night only. So if they come to all of these released talent to say, hey, for one night only, we'll give you X amount of money to show up, then I absolutely feel like it's feasible, even 80%. But I do love the way that they're teasing it, because it is also making fans wonder, who is it going to be? They don't even need to have that many. If they only get 2 or 3, I still feel like it would accomplish what they set out, which was to get eyes on the product. But I mean, it is feasible, you know, for one night only contracts or one night only appearances. Who they decide to put on a longer term, that is a bigger question. Everyone expects a lot of these talent to go to either AEW or Impact. I feel like Impact has to really balance that line between new and old, where the old Impact / TNA was infamous for bringing in all of these released WWE signees, and most of the time it didn't go anywhere. The new Impact has really made some homegrown talent, but they've also done some great things with talent that's come from other promotions. I think it's okay to bring in some of that released talent, but they gotta, you know, toe the line and not overdo it either.
I'm sorry, but of all the people that's been hinted at, it would be cool to see them. But the one person that they haven't hinted at, who I think is probably sitting on that chair, is EC3. Much like I've said, and I think EC3 versus Moose for the TNA Championship would absolutely be a blockbuster of a match that could happen. Is there anybody else out of those releases you think possibly could show up that they haven't hinted at, or is there anybody that you are, you know, a little bit expecting or hoping to see and how they could be used?
That's a good question, because that's a kind of a long list. EC3 pretty much is the one I think a lot of people are rooting for and synonymous for. Again, I mean, that was one where, even though he was previously released from WWE many years ago, he came to Impact and made a name, and he was a homegrown talent there. I think it only makes sense for him to come back. I think when this one is a little different now because we've had some resolution, was Drake Maverick. He's now secured a deal with NXT, so he isn't going to be back. But he would have been another one that I thought people would have really liked. And I think those types of individuals, like I said, Mike and Maria, anyone who's had a history at Impact and coming back, I feel like they're actually going to make a bigger impact, no pun intended, I guess, with a return, because of the fact that they've already have a history there. They've been established. Yeah. And they could easily go up to anyone who's on the roster now, especially if they're an up-and-comer, and have a solid program with them.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I'm also kind of curious to see how Eric Young may be handled in that. It's another person that really, really wasn't able to take off like they could have in WWE. So him coming back where he flourished at could definitely turn some eyes. Okay, so before we talk about the main event for the night, I got to go back again to you know the whole storyline between Tahsa Steelz with Kiera Hogan versus Susie, and Kylie Ray wasn't by her side tonight. Not sure if to buy into that by any means, but I gotta just say again, Tahsa Steelz and Kiera Hogan, that the energy and their interest together, I'm just gonna dig that each and every week that they give that to us, and there's nothing else more that needs to be said. That I'm just invested on wherever they go. And Susie looks like she may be going through a little bit of a small conflict. They didn't put a lot of emphasis on it, but I've seen a little bit of a frustration there. So again, not that we got much from this tonight. I thought it was a solid match. Just a lot of good energy and a good pacing for a show as well. I'm just really interested to see as that continue to grow and grow, where does that ultimately end up going?
Yeah, Tasha and Kiera Hogan are a fierce team. I love their chemistry, their dynamic, and I just want to keep seeing them on TV. They're highly entertaining.
Yeah, and I'm just going to make a quick nod to these two matches really quick, and then we'll talk about the main event. Obviously, the X Division Champion Willie Mack, as he teamed up with Cousin Jake, a tag team that I didn't think I would care about, but that was pretty cool. I got their chemistry. It was pretty good against Chris Bay and Johnny Swinger. The only thing to really take away from that is that Rich Swann obviously must still be on the shelves because obviously that would have been Willie Mack's tag team partner. Not even a mention to him, but definitely pulling to see and wait for him to return, get back in the mix with everything that's going on. Like I said, everybody returned tonight. So, you know, obviously, if you didn't return if you wasn't on this show tonight, or even a mention in the show tonight, then, you know, probably still because of injury or, you know, not being able to re-enter the United States. And then the opening match with Ken Shamrock, Sami Callihan, Michael Elgin. So Ken Shamrock is still in great shape, but I'm gonna need him to put a little bit more energy in that ankle lock, because I used to be scared seeing it back in the day. I feel like he might have been a little gassed.
He had that jump off or he did a dive over the top rope. And he really started off the match strong with a bunch of big hits. So I'm sure after that jump over the top rope, that was it. And he had a little bit of energy left. But at his age, even just doing that, I'm still just enthralled by his wrestling ability.
Yep. Okay, so the main event, before we talk about the main event really quick, take a look at this promo from Jordynne Grace as she prepares for it.
I'm Gia Miller here with Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace. Jordynne, are you feeling any uneasiness about having to defend your title tonight after having to take 6 weeks off?
Gia, coming here doesn't make me feel uneasy. Coming here, it's like home. What makes me uneasy is having to sit at home with this title for the past 6 weeks, not being able to defend it. All I can do is study and train and study and train and study and train, and it gets exhausting after a while. It drives you a little bit crazy, and you know what? I'm ready to return to normalcy. And normal for me is being here. Normal for me is dominating the competition. And tonight, when I drive Taya's head straight through the mat, that's when I know everything is back to normal.
Thank you, Jordynne.
Impact Wrestling, tonight, 8/7 Central on AXS TV.
Okay, so obviously this match, first of all, when Jordynne Grace won the Knockouts championship, I'm overly excited for her. Then obviously the pandemic hit hard, and so she's been holding this title for a while, because this match was supposed to happen 6 weeks ago at Rebellion. And like I said, Rebellion was canceled. The world went on timeout, and ultimately now the rematch with Taya is happening, happened tonight on Impact, which was a very, very solid match. But before we even talk about the match, at this point now, I'm like, the main event, wait, we still haven't seen Deonna yet. So I automatically knew there was going to be some Deonna shenanigans, and I was absolutely cool with it before I even seen what happened, because it's just like, well, if you're going to bring a big name in like that, you might as well insert them right into the title picture, which is great, because when you think about what's happening now, we talked about the women's the Knockouts division establishing tag teams, and then you're establishing singles competitor that's for the championship. You got people in different little pockets of what they can flourish in and do different things, and it really does keep a lot of their stronger talents all in different mixing bowls. You know what I mean? Because if we're gonna bring Deonna in, you got Kylie Ray sitting on the other side, you got Kimberly sitting on another side. You don't want to give us the ultimate already. And not that any of these matches are any less than the other, but bringing in these new signings, as fans, we're just looking to see who's going to get mixed up with who first. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of money to be made here. And I love how they got everything just sprinkled out in different places. So I like this because, I think this automatically reinserts, even if you forgot, like we talked about, Jordynne Grace and Taya was on the shelves for 6 months. They were 2 months. They wasn't here. And now that they're here, like, oh, I forgot about them and the championship. And it can't just be them two going forward. So adding the third piece to there, it's going to get interesting there. Not to mention Rosemary's just hanging out, going on dates during the match.
Yeah. I thought we were going to see more from Rosemary and Johnny Bravo to allude to something else. I know we've had some really funny promos with them, but you're right about the ending. Taya lost, so it kindly seemingly closes the chapter on them. So to bring in a new competitor right away for Jordynne Grace, I think it's a great way to keep a story going, to keep interest going. And if they want to throw in Taya to do, triple threat, they can. But if they really want to focus the story on just Jordynne and Deonna, they can. So I really like this mix. And it makes Deonna Purrazzo a really big deal. They've really pushed her signing as a big win for the company. And it also shows that it seems like they're wanting to invest in her long term. I think that was a big question as well when they first signed her, if this was going to be short term, if this was going to be just a short deal. But if you don't bring someone in like that for a short-term deal, you don't bring someone and automatically catapult them to the title level without any intentions of keeping them in the long term for the long term.
Absolutely. So, yeah, tonight, like I said, tonight didn't have a lot of the action like they had last week, but they did really unscramble a lot of the spaghetti from the previous week and months, like I said, due to the tournament and so on, and really projected a really set narrative and track going into Slammiversary. And I think there's a lot for fans to get invested to in each and every avenue. Again, much like I said with the TNA Heavyweight Championship, you got Hernandez, going against Moose next week. I really think that they're going to really cater that championship towards the OG TNA fans. Yeah. And that's why you're going to just keep having the TNA originals as they come continuously step up until Slammiversary. Something big is to happen with Moose, and I would assume a TNA original. So I'm definitely interested to seeing that and how this all plays out. I do not have anything else to add today for this review besides one other thing, and that is cancel culture is starting to pick up steam to me.
It's growing on me.
Jacob Christ is definitely getting his first win.
I love Joseph Ryan pretty much saying they're creating a culture so Katie Forbes can, act freely and feel like she's in a safe space. And I'm like, what was she doing before that she wasn't feeling comfortable in this environment? I would like to know what about it's growing on me. It's growing on me for sure.
Any other closing thoughts for you so we can wrap this up for tonight?
No, you know what? Maybe not a lot on the wrestling side, but a really good storytelling episode.
Yes. And I think next week probably going to double down more. So again, people who like, if you like wrestling and you like a good combination and direction with storytelling, I mean, Impact is doing a really good job because each and every week the story progresses and it also invests fans because it leaves you questioning and wondering like what could be next, how they're going to do this, how they're going to do resolve. And we've already seen from last week to this week that, it's really written so that nothing's really left unanswered, and it really sets you up for the next episode. So I'm thoroughly invested. I really can't wait for Slammiversary. And it's only June 9th, but we got a little bit of time. But I'm pretty sure with confidence, especially with everybody returning, we're gonna have a lot more entertainment going in the future. But yes, that is the review for the night. I hope you guys like it. Definitely let me know in the comments what you thought about tonight's episode. And as always, we'll be back next week for next week's review.
Bye.
Big gold bell.